They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because someone new made them feel exciting, and excitement is loud, but what you gave them was real. While you were offering consistency, loyalty, depth, they were distracted by compliments, quick replies, easy validation. Temporary attention feels powerful in the moment. It boosts the ego. It feeds insecurity. It makes someone feel desired without requiring responsibility. And for a while, they thought they won. They thought the grass was greener. They thought the spark meant something deeper. They thought you would always be there if it didn't work out. But here's what they didn't understand. Attention fades, novelty expires, and when the noise quiets down, when the late-night conversations lose their thrill, when the person who chased them stops chasing, reality sets in, because what you gave them wasn't noise, it was stability, it was peace. It was someone who genuinely saw them, not just someone who reacted to them. And losing that doesn't hurt immediately, it hurts slowly. In this video, we're going to talk about why people trade something real for something temporary. And the moment they realize what they sacrificed, if you've ever been replaced quickly, if you've ever felt like you were swapped for someone new, stay until the end, because their regret doesn't always show up loudly, but it always arrives. 1. Why they chose temporary attention. When they chose temporary attention over you, it wasn't about your value. It was about their emptiness. You were steady, predictable in the healthiest way, safe, and safety feels calm, but temporary attention, it feels electric. New compliments, new conversations, someone laughing at every joke, someone reacting instantly to every post. It gives a rush. And for someone who confuses intensity with love, that rush feels like destiny. What they didn't realize is this: you weren't boring. You were consistent. You weren't too available. You were reliable. But reliability doesn't feed ego the way novelty does. Temporary attention makes a person feel wanted without requiring depth, no history, no accountability, no hard conversations. Just excitement. And when someone is emotionally immature, they chase what feels good now instead of what builds something lasting later, so they convince themselves you'd always be there. They told themselves you were secure enough to understand. They assumed your loyalty had no expiration date. But here's the truth. They didn't choose someone better. They chose someone easier, easier to impress, easier to entertain, easier to walk away from. And in that moment, they mistook attention for connection. 2. When the attention starts to fade. At first, everything feels fast. Messages come quickly. Plans feel spontaneous. There's constant reassurance. It's light, it's fun, it's effortless. But temporary attention has a short lifespan because it was never built on depth. There are no shared struggles, no hard conversations survived, no real understanding beneath the surface. And slowly, the energy changes. Replies aren't as instant. Compliments feel recycled. The excitement starts feeling ordinary. That rush they mistook for love, it was just novelty. And novelty always expires. That's when comparison begins, not loudly, quietly. They start noticing what's missing, the way you used to listen without judgment, the way you remembered small details, the way you showed up consistently, not just when it was convenient. Temporary attention made them feel admired, but you made them feel understood, and understanding hits differently once it's gone. 3. The realization they can't ignore. They begin to realize something uncomfortable. The person giving them attention doesn't actually know them, not their fears, not their childhood wounds, not the way their voice changes when they're overwhelmed. You did, and you stayed. That's when the silence starts to feel heavier, because temporary attention is loud in public, but quiet in private. There's no depth to fall into, no emotional safety net, no one who sees through their masks. And slowly, they start missing things they once overlooked. Your patience when they were distant, your calm when they were reactive, your loyalty when they were unsure. They begin replaying memories, not the dramatic moments, the simple ones, the comfort, the steady presence, the feeling of being chosen without having to perform. And here's the part that hurts them most. With you, they didn't have to impress. With temporary attention, they constantly do, because attention is conditional. It depends on excitement, on mystery, on keeping things interesting. But real connection, it survives boredom, it survives flaws, it survives bad days. And now, they feel the difference. They traded depth for distraction, and distraction doesn't hold you when life gets hard. That's when regret begins to form, not dramatic, not public, but quiet and very real. 4. When they finally understand what they lost. There comes a moment when it fully hits them. Not when they're surrounded by noise, not when they're distracted, but when they're alone, when the excitement has faded, when the newness feels normal, when attention no longer feels special. That's when they start thinking about you differently. They remember how secure they felt, even if they didn't admit it at the time. They remember how you didn't compete for attention. You didn't play games. You didn't need an audience to validate your connection. You were real, and real is rare. Temporary attention made them feel admired, but you made them feel accepted. There's a difference. Admiration fades when flaws show. Acceptance stays. And now, they see it. They start realizing you weren't too calm. You weren't too predictable. You weren't lacking spark. You were stable, and stability only feels boring to someone addicted to chaos. That's when the weight of their decision settles in. They didn't just lose someone who cared. They lost someone who would have stayed through seasons. Someone who didn't need constant excitement to feel connected. And the hardest part, they know you're not the same person anymore. Because when someone chooses temporary attention over you, you learn not to wait where you weren't valued. 5. The consequence they never saw coming. Here's what they truly didn't expect. They thought you would wait. They thought your loyalty had no limit, that your heart would always stay open, that if things didn't work out with the temporary, they could circle back to the permanent. But something changed in you. Not loudly, quietly. You stopped checking their page, stopped rereading old messages, stopped hoping they'd realize your worth. You didn't beg. You didn't compete. You didn't try to prove yourself. You chose dignity. And that's the part they underestimated, because temporary attention fades. But when someone who truly loved you becomes emotionally unavailable, that hits differently. They start noticing your silence, not the dramatic kind, the peaceful kind. You're no longer reacting, no longer chasing closure, no longer offering access to your energy. And suddenly, they feel replaceable because the person they thought would always be there is no longer waiting. That's when regret becomes heavy, not because the attention disappeared, but because you did. They realize they traded something rare for something common, and rare doesn't return on demand. If this happened to you, let this sink in. You were never lacking. They just chose what felt exciting over what was meaningful. And sometimes people only understand depth after they've drowned in something shallow. Your value didn't decrease because they chased attention. It increased because you walked away with self-respect. Temporary attention feels good for a moment, but being truly seen, that's irreplaceable. If you've ever been replaced for something temporary, like this video as a reminder that real always outlasts fake. Comment, "I know my worth," if you're no longer available for half-hearted love. Subscribe for more deep emotional truths about relationships, healing, self-worth, and protecting your peace. And share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight, because one day they will understand what they lost. But by then, you'll already be gone.